Joining me right now is Kentucky Congressman, House Financial Services Committee member, and House Foreign Affairs Committee member, Andy Barr. Congressman, it's good to see you today. What do you want to see out of this, your committee meeting coming up with John Kerry? Tell me about the impact of revealing such information that he may have learned from Israel to pretty much the enemy, the Iranians.
Well, thanks for having me on, Maria. And we've always known that John Kerry supported appeasement of the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, because, after all, he was the architect of the flawed Iran nuclear deal back in 2015. What we didn't know is that while Secretary of State, if these allegations are true, he divulged sensitive and perhaps classified information about military activities of our key strategic ally in the region to our enemy, Iran. And we also want to know from Special Envoy Kerry whether or not he divulged sensitive information to the Iranians, to Foreign Minister Zarif, during the Trump administration, and undermined U.S. foreign policy during that period of time when Secretary Pompeo was reestablishing deterrence against Iran, deterrence that was needed because, of course, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, destabilized the region and gave billions of dollars in cash to the Iranian government to support proxy terrorists throughout the region.
I mean, it's just extraordinary, all of those falsities about General Michael Flynn around the Logan Act. And here we have an abuse of the Logan Act right in front of our eyes, potentially, with John Kerry. We'll certainly be watching that. You know, I made the point earlier, Congressman, that bad policy equals bad outcomes. We are seeing more fighting in the Middle East after the Trump administration pretty much handed this administration peace in the Middle East, with 5 countries agreeing to normalize with Israel. And now we've got rockets being thrown at Israel. Your thoughts on the foreign policy that we're seeing coming out of this administration and what's most concerning to you?
Well, at every stage, President Obama and John Kerry and Joe Biden were wrong about the Middle East. They said that there would never be peace in the Middle East without first an Israeli-Palestinian agreement. President Trump proved them wrong with the Abraham Accords, and now we see the Biden administration unwinding that and creating destabilizing activities by supporting the Palestinians with no conditions, and also flirting with a revived Iran nuclear deal. This is inviting the kind of terrorist destabilization from the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism that we do not want. I also want to know from Special Envoy Kerry if he was actively trying to undermine Secretary Pompeo's efforts to exit the JCPOA, because that's very important. We know that President Trump's strategy of maximum pressure worked because Iran's foreign currencies declined by 96% during that maximum pressure campaign, and also Iran's military budget declined by 25%. We reestablished deterrence.
We seem to be watching another crisis develop in the Middle East. We've got a crisis at the border. We don't know if the economic policy is going to turn into a crisis as well. But President Biden is hosting a meeting of the, quote, Big Four later today as part of a push to find common ground for his $4 trillion in spending plans. Republicans are opposing these massive sizes of the bill, the tax increases that will come with it. Congressman, what are you expecting from this meeting? And I guess in order to get $4 trillion in new spending, followed by $4 trillion in tax increases through, you're not going to get any Republican votes, I assume. Will they do this through reconciliation and further this one-party governance?
Unfortunately, Maria, I think this is window dressing. This is one more phase of a socialist agenda, an agenda of paying people to not work, an agenda of weaponizing financial regulation to destroy the energy sector, increase taxes, pushing a Green New Deal through the disguise of an infrastructure bill that spends 93% of the funds that they're proposing on things other than roads and bridges. This is not an agenda that will earn bipartisan support at all. Look, I hope we can reach a bipartisan agreement on infrastructure, but it not only needs to be tailored in size, and we don't need to be borrowing more money when we have these inflation fears right around the corner, but in addition to that, we need to remember that there are trillions of dollars of private capital that can and could be deployed right now to rebuild our country. Why are we borrowing money from China when we could deploy private capital to rebuild our country, do it more efficiently, effectively? What Biden is proposing, to the extent it even applies to real infrastructure, would crowd out private sector investment that could be deployed much quicker and much more efficiently than the government could ever do.
That's a good point. Real quick before you go, one of my sources says that he's expecting they'll merge these two bills, the Family Act and the quote-unquote infrastructure bill. They'll merge them into two bills in early June. Is that what you're expecting?
Well, they say that they're dividing them in two bills. I certainly hope that they reduce the size and bring them into smaller chunks so that we could possibly earn bipartisan support for something that makes more sense. But certainly, if they combine them into a $4 trillion bill, there will be no bipartisanship on this, just as there hasn't been throughout the Biden administration.
Yes, well, it's been through executive order or reconciliation. One-party rule. Right. Congressman, we'll be watching all the developments. Thanks very much, sir. Andy Barr joining us this morning in D.C.